when it starts to be the thing that's stopping us from taking action and taking risks and failing. Say I'm creating a song. Am I creating a song to get, or am I creating a song to give? So if my posture is I want to get 1,000 new fans or customers, but then if I'm creating this thing because I'm giving, that's the intention is different when you put it out there.
For sure.
Brian Jacques is a dedicated professional and community mentor who inspires others through his commitment to giving back. Grounded in a rich background of creative pursuits, he believes that true fulfillment comes from empowering people to reach their full potential.
You got this great business, you're coaching artists, you're teaching lessons.
I just check my compass each day or at every turning point. This is how I know whether I'm doing something that's right or wrong. Because as an entrepreneur, like small business owner, every day is like, am I doing this right? You know, am I making enough money? Am I doing the right things?
Welcome back to the David F. Haas Podcast. In this podcast, I sit down with my former client, my good buddy, Brian Jacques. He's running a music company. He took a big leap, went from being a construction worker to following his passion. We talk about what it took to take that leap, and also how to continue to undo the protections so that we can maximize our potential. I really think you're going to enjoy this conversation with Brian Jacques. Brian Jacques, back in the studio.
Dave Oz, thanks for having me.
It's been a minute. We haven't seen each other in a while.
Yep,
we haven't seen each other. You're looking great. You're looking like a spring chicken.
You know what? You look great. We both have a little bit of gray going on.
Oh man, it's coming in. It's coming in like wild now.
Oh, it's wildfire once it starts.
I know. I did the buzz cut for a while, and then I was like, well, maybe I'm going to grow my hair back a little bit, but just got to embrace it now. I'm at that age.
Yeah, just embrace it. Well, people are saying they like the way it looks on me, but I look in the mirror and I'm like, I don't like this white right here. I want to go get that cup.
Hate gray hair. I literally hate gray hair with anything. But then if you try and dye it, it looks weird too.
People are so nice. They're like, no, you're like a silver fox.
Yeah, I don't want to be a silver fox.
I want to be a brown fox.
Yeah, man. So, you just released a new song, and so I figured we get on the podcast and talk about that. But, we've already done a podcast where we dove deep into some of the work that you and I were doing together a while back, but now it's like, you've made this like huge leap and like you've completely changed careers, and that was like kind of the undoing that we did when you and I were working together, right? It was like to like break through all of those protections and all of the fear and everything, and to finally get you to this space where you take this leap, and now you're like this. You got this great business, you're coaching artists, you're teaching lessons. It's like a complete, like you went from being a construction worker to having your own construction business. Granted, you were still like an entrepreneur, but like to like being in what it was that you truly are passionate about. And that's what we were talking about, was that, music was always your passion, right? Like you've just been playing music, but you never saw how that passion could be like your whole like kind of life, and now it's like you're like completely immersed in the field of music is what I would say. I mean, unless something has changed in the last year or so.
No, I mean, I guess the field of music, it's the field of people. Yeah. Helping people, right?
Yeah.
It's the field of ideas and helping someone achieve their goal or their dream, whether it's I want to be able to play bonfire chords, campfire songs, or it's I'm already an artist and I just need to get from A to B, maybe be able to release my music without all of the obstacles or chaos in our minds that happen. And it's interesting. A lot of it has to do with just shift in posture and then just like how we talk or how we view it. So it's the same thing we're trying to do, but it's how we see it, which gets us going forward. Like when I was doing coaching, or when you were coaching me, it was, I wanted to go maybe do this thing and didn't know how to do it, but then it was just a shift on how I looked at it, which allowed me to go through the door.
Yeah, I would call that like a, part of like, I have like this like 4 C's, I can't remember, CCRR, which is catch, connect, recontextualize, release. So it's like first you have to catch like what the limitation is that you have inside of you, right? And so like that's what we did when you started working here. It was like we started catching belief systems. Like a belief system that you had was like I'm too old to pursue music was one of the ones that you had, right?
Yeah.
And so then we just broke that belief system down and we looked at it from a different lens or a different angle, and then that had less power over you. And then I can't remember what the other ones were because it was a long time ago, but there was all these little things that we broke down, and we just had you look at them So the catch and connect it is connecting it to the pain that you're avoiding, which is I'm not good enough, essentially, right? And then the recontextualization is, well, look at this guy. He was like, I think you see these posts on Instagram and stuff. It's like, this guy was 53 when he started like Ray Kroc was like 53 when he started McDonald's, or when he took McDonald's from the McDonald's brothers. Like, so it's like I was like, just showed you those recontextualizations, and then you're like, oh, wait a second. And so we broke all of those beliefs down, and then as a consequence of breaking those beliefs down and dealing with the pain that was connected to them, or that those beliefs were protecting you from, right? Then as a natural consequence, you just leaped into like music, right? Which you actually really leaped. It was like we were talking, you're like, you had the construction business and you were doing some construction jobs, and then like a week later, you're like, I'm selling all my shit. I actually bought some nail guns from you.
You did.
And I was like, oh fuck, you're going, man. Like, and you like built a studio in your house, and so this is always like what I've talked about. And I'm guessing that this is the same struggles that you see with people that are kind of trying to release music, is they get wrapped up in beliefs, and especially in like this information age where you're just bombarded with what you're supposed to do and how to do it and what editing software you need, and it's like you just get overwhelmed. And so people probably come to you and they're like kind of not knowing where to turn, and you just kind of like to show them a different way, or have them look at it through a different lens, and then they can start to see how it all unfolds. Like that's exactly what you and I went through, was us breaking down those beliefs that you had, and then all of a sudden it's like it shifted inside of you, and you were like, I'm done. I'm like just selling my business. I'm selling everything that I own, and I'm starting a studio. So it's like, I don't know, why don't you walk me through your experience of that? Like, it seemed like it was a dramatic shift, but there was like an undoing of a certain person that you were to become who you are now, essentially.
Well, I guess learning not to be defined by the fear.
Yeah.
So I think that there's going to be fear in everything you do, and of course some of that's healthy fear. It keeps you alert, right?
Yeah.
But when it starts to be the thing that's stopping us from taking action and taking risks and failing, right? And for me, we were just, when you and I were working together, and you're for the coaching, you were just sort of identifying this this side thing in music for me, and it was stirring up. Like you'd give me the questionnaires, like if you could see yourself in so many years, where would it be if money and money wasn't an issue, or anything was possible, where would you be? And it was like, oh well, I would do something with music, right? Or if you were on your deathbed and your loved ones were standing around you, what are some of the things they would say? And obviously he's a great guy and all these other things, but then he really did good with his music, right? And he loved his music, right? And so that was coming up, and I remember when you were like, hey dude, you should be doing music instead. And I was like, wait a minute, I hired you to help me start my drywall business or to automate my drywall business. Yes. We were going to make like dry tech or something like that, and it was going to be like finishing big houses and this and that, and I did go towards that, and then COVID hit, right? And then it was like, oh, we got this pause, right? There's this moment to think, and then you were like, jump on the music thing. And it was around the same time someone asked me, hey, can you teach me some guitar? And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, we'll do that. And then I was kind of like hesitant, right? And then someone else was like, oh, hey, can you help me record this song? And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. And then of course it's a slippery slope, right? And then I'm like, okay, the wheels are turning again. Let's try for this dream again. Let's do this. I remember being a week into it, and the fear was coming back, because I stepped out of what I knew and what I was comfortable with, even though that's not where I was supposed to be. I stepping out of what I knew into this new changed environment, and I wanted to go back. I wanted to jump back into the into the old Brian, right? Because I was like, this ain't working. And then you were like, you opened your business like 2 days ago. Just relax. And that was part of it. But I wanted to jump back into what was comfortable and what kept me safe, right? Yes. And so my own journey with that has been a lot of like, okay, distinguishing what's a rational and an irrational fear, right? And then I see that with my clients today and my artists is, I'll tell you what, if 10 people come and record a song at my studio, only 1 out of 10 will show people or release it. Most of them bring it to the demo phase and they're happy with it. They're charged by it in the studio. They're like, this sounds great. This sounds great. And then they go and they listen to it. Maybe at home they listen to it again and they maybe get demoitis, right? Where they're listening it on repeat. And then they start to develop this thing where they don't like certain things about it. And they're like, that's not how I want to be perceived.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of people who are going up to the door, knocking on it, and then turning away as soon as it starts to open.
Yeah.
When they could actually be showing even their friends and family and whatever, maybe posting it on social media. But what's up with that? That's a high ratio.
Well, I mean, it's people that are allowing the fear to rule their lives, essentially, right? And so it's like, and now it's very easy to, now this is the ego. It's such a tricky motherfucker, right? Like it will come up with all of these ways to protect you that seem very logical and reasonable. Like, oh, the demo, like it doesn't sound quite exactly the way I wanted it to. And actually, I just recorded a whole podcast. Zach and I were having a conversation about it. It was about like the difference between like, you know, good enough and perfectionism. And, you know, you have to actually probably lean in the beginning just to the good enough side and then slowly move towards perfectionism, move towards making it better and better and better. But in the beginning, you have to be good enough. But people use perfection as a tool to protect them from, you know, ever putting their shit out there. And
they don't even realize it, though.
Yeah, right.
They're just not ready yet.
And so, and the wild thing about that whole entire thing is that they've justified in their minds why they can't do it. You know, oh, the bass doesn't sound right. This does, you know, oh, maybe I want to get in the studio one more time and, you know, redo this. You know what, that song is not quite what I wanted. Let's start working on this other song, which I'm guessing you're probably seeing too, is like someone gets right to the finish line, or they've even got the demo in their hands, and then instead of releasing it to the world and going to the next step, which was like the promotion and the talking about it and getting it out there, they start working on the next song, you know, because they don't want to put the other song out. And so, you know, they make up all of these stories in their head that say, well, you know, I'll do it on this next one. But it's like, I think what you have learned and what I've definitely learned is, you know, the how is revealed by taking action, you know. And so it's like, if you don't take action, you're never going to learn like what is actually required. And that combined with intentional action, right? And so like that's like where you made this big shift, was like, you know, you had before, I think your belief was the only way to make it in music was to, you know, become famous essentially. But I'm like, you know, one of the things that I helped you like look in that different way was like, there's a million ways to make money in music. You know, it's like, you know, it's not just gigging. It's like, you know, you could be a teacher, you could be a producer, you could, you know, do all of these things. And we looked at different ways people were making money online and all of this stuff. And so then you're like, oh, wait a second, there's all of these things. And then by getting into the field of doing what you're doing now, you just started realizing what works and how to attract clients and what people actually need. And so the best thing you can do is lean towards good enough in the beginning, so you start at least putting your shit out there and you start realizing that the things that you thought were so terrible aren't as terrible as you actually have made them up to be in your head. And this is where people are getting stuck. And what you describe is like so many people, I coined it finish line syndrome, like do a large amount of work to get to the point where they, like, think about all of the things that have to happen to get to the point where you could play a song, record it, find a guy to help you produce it, and now you got the song like available to be able to put out to the world. Think about years of practice and all of this, and then you're right there, you're finally going to put it out, and then you unconsciously allow the fear to win, right? And so you got like right to the finish line, then you decided that you're going to quit essentially, right? And so it's like, this is like a phenomenon that's happening with like lots of people just in everything. It's like they kind of do. I mean, I did it with the book that I wrote. Like I wrote a book a long time ago and I wrote the whole fucking book and it's like just sitting in my OneDrive. It's like never released it because I didn't like continue to push beyond what was required. So I'm not judging people. I'm just saying this is a mechanism of the mind to protect you from someone saying you suck, right? And the pain that comes along with that, or whatever else that you perceive might happen if you put that song out there.
Oh yeah, and that perception is huge. It's easy. It's not a far stride to go. It's not a far guess to go, I'm going to release something and I might get judged from it. Your mind can easily put those two together, right? You're like, oh, I don't want to put that out yet.
Yeah.
But there's almost nothing bad that can happen to you by releasing a piece of art or something that you created and put it out there for someone to view it. There's almost nothing bad.
Yeah, I think a good thing to do with people would be to walk them through the and then what scenario, right? And then what's going to happen? So you release it and it's not good enough, and then what? Well, then I'm going to feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Then people are going to judge me. Then I'm going to have to face the internal belief that I'm not good enough and I'm never going to make it. Like that's what's actually going to come up, right? And so if you have the awareness to turn towards all that pain, then you just release it like instantly.
There's a funny line too. I know people who are that are releasing so much, and it's almost to the point where you'd almost have to like try to unfollow it on social media because it's like, okay, same song a year later, and they're just still pounding it over people's heads, right? Here's my song, or here's a new song every day. It's like the extreme releasers who have lost all a fear about it, and they're going crazy, which I guess at that point there might be a loss of return on investment, right? Maybe there's what do you call that in junk volume? Yeah, like in working out, it's junk volume. You're doing reps for nothing. Nothing's happening now, right? So I could see where that becomes too far. But then you have like on the other side of the spectrum, I have an artist who recorded the most dynamite song, and I showed it to my whole family. They're like, "Wow, this is amazing! Vocals are amazing, lyrics are amazing, message is amazing. The production was spot on. We had fussed over it forever." And it's still sitting in the computer. And it's better than 90% of the stuff you see people in our area releasing. And I'm like, man, drop that thing. Like, just fake a music video in your... And so she's saying it's not ready yet, right? Or isn't totally comfortable with it yet. What did you say? You said people walk up to the line and then it's like the how is revealed in... through action taking, right? And then they get to the promotions. But I think there's something more important that you get from releasing it is you get to see it differently, right? You don't get to view it in that way you would see it if you released it, because something happens when you let go of it and you put it out there and you hear someone else's opinion about it,
or you hear no one's opinion.
You
get crickets. That's the other thing too, right? It's like, and I think what you're touching on there, and I actually just recently came to this awareness about like my content on YouTube, because like I was releasing, I think if you look at my YouTube channel, I have like something like 400 videos on YouTube, right? It's a lot of videos, right? But it's like I have essentially like no followers, like no subscribers, and it was because I was like just putting out stuff with no intention. Right, and so action without intention is going to lead you to nowhere. Right? Whoa. Yeah, I know.
So am I creating a song right now? Like, say I'm creating a song. Am I creating a song to get, or am I creating a song to give?
Yeah, right.
So if my posture is I want to get 1,000 new fans or customers, and that's why I'm making this thing, my posture has been creating that piece of work the whole time. But then if I'm creating this thing because I'm giving, right, I have something to give, even if it's the same work, that's the intention is different when you put it out there,
for sure. And like now when your intention is aligned with like what's in the highest good, you're going to be supported more from like the energy of God, the energy of the universe, whatever that may be. And so if your intention is, for example, like the getting is very egotistical, right? And so it's like when you're trying to get, you're going to get less support from God, right? And so because the only reason you're trying to get something is because of something that's missing inside of you, right? And so it's like, I need more followers so I can get more sales. Well, why do I need more sales? Because I want security. I want freedom, right? And it's like, oh, well, so I'm looking out there to try and solve for that, right? And so then when I recognize that, I can start to look within and be like, well, why am I not free right now, right? Or why do I not feel safe right now? And then I can start turning towards that pain. When I do that, then I can start to shift my intention to, well, what is it that I'm really trying to do here? I'm really trying to help people, right? And in the way I see the intentional action to help people is to spread the work that has changed my life and has changed my client's life, and you're sitting here as a result of the work that we've done together, right? And so it's like, that's what I really truly believe in. And so then I can shift to just giving, but it's still intentional, which is giving to spread the message. And so my intention to spread the message is to grow my YouTube channel, right? And so it's a very precise intention, which is not just to grow my YouTube channel to, well, 1 million is like the big one, but it's like right now it's like 1,000 subscribers, right? And so what seems like nothing, right? But
it's actually a lot in YouTube land, though.
If you put 1,000 people in a room, that's a fucking sold out concert, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay? In YouTube, we're all 1,000's a lot.
There we go, right?
Yeah.
And so now that would be the same way I would approach like any music that you're putting out. It's like, okay, I want to give this message to other people, and I want to do so by, getting more people to listen to more. Watch the word "get" there, but allowing more people to hear this message. So how am I going to do that? Oh, I'm going to do it through YouTube. I'm going to do it through Instagram. I'm going to do it through concerts. I'm going to do, like, you figure out what the mechanism is that would best serve you. I've just happened to choose YouTube, right? I could do it with retreats. I could do it with, doing free speaking gigs, like whatever. It's just you choose the mechanism, right? But you got to have that intention, because if you don't have that intentional action without intention leads essentially to nowhere. And that's where the guy is just spewing out song after song after song, but it's like, what's the intention? Yeah. And it's like, he's not aligned with what he actually is trying to do. And so you just kind of go nowhere, right?
Well, I think you said something earlier too about if it's, and I forget how you said it, but this is what I got from it.
Sure.
If it's coming from self-centeredness, then God's not there pushing it out, because God wants us to be in service of others and like helping those around us, right? 100%. This is kind of what I'm getting from this, although you said it differently, right? So if I'm gonna put music out there, and or the guy who's releasing, if the intention is his music himself, then it's just a totally different thing than, like, you're coaching people, right?
Yes.
So if the goal is to change somebody's life, at the end of the day, you're going to change as many lives as you can and help people, right? And that stays in the actual front. Then those YouTube followers, they'll catch up to where they're supposed to be.
100%.
Because now we're not trying to control something that's in the realm of what I need.
And you also let go of the outcome as well. Like, so it's like, if my intention is just to help people and I show up every day and I do that, which I do, right?
Yes.
Eventually, that will be supported. Like, it's like Elon Musk is a guy that's like very mission driven, like, and he doesn't care about the outcome. He's just like, he's connected to the mission, which, like, he wants to go to Mars. That's his mission. He wants to make the world a better place. That's his mission. And as a result of following that mission and making steps every day towards that mission or that intention, he makes a bunch of money. Right. And so it's like the same thing would be true for like a musician. You have to have like a more solid why. Now, with all that being said, you only need level of consciousness desire, which is at 125, to like move to like, really high states of wealth and fame and all of that stuff. Right. But what will happen is when it finally all shows up because of the desire, right, then you're left going, well, now what, right? There's like that famous quote from Jim Carrey where he says, like, I wish everyone could become wealthy so they realize that it's like, it's not the answer. It's not going to solve for what's going on inside, right? Yeah. And so I guess the combination of the work that I would do is it'd be like, if someone says to me, came to you and said, hey, I really want to release this song because I want to be famous, right? The first question I would ask them is why, right? Why do you want to be famous? Oh, there it is. And so then they would get to the root of like, oh, it's always just what I dreamed of. But why? Why did you always dream of that, right? And then you may get to the fact that they were a loser in school and no one liked them, and now they're trying to get acceptance and accolades out there because they never saw for the pain that was going on inside. And so a lot of people get like wrapped up and they think, I don't like to look backwards. I just like to look forward, and I don't want to look at my problems. I don't want to focus on my trauma. But the thing is, it's like, if you don't look at that shit and undo it, it will continue to remain a block throughout your whole entire life, right? And so it's like, one of the biggest blocks I just uncovered recently for myself was like, and it's still tied into like people pleasing, but it's like needing people to like me, right? And so that needing people to like me resulted in a behavior that was like, not calling it like it is, essentially, right? Not calling people out if they're not producing for me, or if someone has a different opinion that I don't agree with, I just agree with them even though it's not like my opinion, kind of thing, right? And so all these little things, and once I brought awareness to that, I was like, holy shit, like look how much this has prevented me from like becoming, the best version of myself, let's call it successful. Like it's just so many areas of my life, and now every time it shows up, I can't not see it. Well, what was on the other side of that? It was the pain of not being accepted or not being liked, right? So then once I started turning towards that pain, then I could just go, I'm okay if people don't like me. I can handle it, right? And so, and then the second that
it's a great place to be.
It is. And so, and then the second I did that, God just basically sent to me like a 40,000 views on Instagram with one of my like political posts or something like that, and people saying "fuck you, you're a traitor," and I was like, now I got like the entire country of Canada fucking hating me, and it's like, and God's like, are you really okay in people not liking you? And I'm like, yeah. Well, it still threw me off. It gave me the opportunity to look within, and so now, how do you apply that? How do you apply all that shit that I just said to, like, let's just say someone coming in, and this, it's not just artists, it's anyone that wants to do anything in their lives. This is the shit that they're going to have to face, right? And so if you can get to their why, and they say, well, I want to be famous, and we say, why? And it's like, well, how will you feel once you're famous? I'll feel like I proved to everyone that I could do it. Oh. So if you need to prove to somebody that you could do it, that means that you don't believe it from within, right? You don't believe in yourself, right? And so now if you solve for that and self-belief starts to come, guess what? You go out and you do the becoming famous is just a consequence in self-belief, right? And so that's how I've kind of always looked at things. It's like whatever it is you're trying to get, which is egotistical, because you need something out there to make you feel a way inside. Right. And so I just always ask, if I catch myself in getting, I say, well, what is it I'm trying to feel? And whatever the answer is, the reverse is true. So if I'm trying to feel safe by having a bunch of money, that means I don't feel safe right now. Well, why not? Right? Well, because I didn't feel safe as a kid. We didn't have enough money, and I still haven't dealt with that pain. So that's still running the show because I'm trying to go get safety out there. Just with that awareness alone, the need for safety starts to go away a little bit. Right. And now I can align with what God, for me it's God, wants from me, and not worry about the safety, right? Because I've dealt with the feeling of not being safe, and I'm like, I'm okay there. And so now I don't need to do this thing to feel safe. I can just do what God wants me to do, right? And now when you do what God wants you to do, everything just flows. Like life becomes effortless and easy, and you feel like it's like almost like flowing too easily, and then you start to self-sabotage. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is like what you're picking up on is, if everyone just aligned with what God wanted from them, they would have everything they ever needed. But what everyone does is, let me check all of my own boxes first, and then I'll go and do what God wants me to do, right? And so, but that requires a lot of undoing of the protections that we created in our mind, right? And so, this is what we're up against, is like the mind trying to protect us from pain, and it perceives that pain as death, right? That's why the people won't release the videos, won't release the songs, because they think that judgment, failure, not being noticed, whatever else would come from it, being told it's not good enough, being rejected, they think unconsciously, they're not even aware that they're thinking this, that if that happens, they will die, right? They won't be accepted, right? And so, so of course the mind protects you from that, right? Yeah. And so like that's what people are up against. And but the good news is that when you have people that are trying to put themselves out there, at least they get to taste, they get to get exposed to it. If you just remain in your comfort zone, you don't never get exposed to it, right? And so then you just stay at the same level of consciousness your whole entire life, right? Whereas if you put out a video like I put out and you got hundreds, thousands of people commenting saying I'm a traitor and all this stuff, it's like now I get to actually look within and go, oh, that needing of acceptance, that needing to be loved, that needing to be liked, it's still in me because they're still pushing that button in me, right? But I would never have gotten that if I didn't say, hey, I want to grow, essentially, right? So anyways, that was a long-winded.
No, it was good.
Yeah,
it was good. You're yeah.
I was riffing there.
Lots of good food for thought there.
Yeah. But let's circle it back to you. So, what is it that you're doing though? Like in the studio, what's the bulk of your time now these days?
The bulk of the time is one-on-one lessons, or coaching.
Yeah, nice.
And the coaching versus a lesson, like a lesson, I would describe that as more just very physical instruction, technical ability on, either the guitar, piano, drums, and singing. And we do a lot of that. But then the other half of the time it's questions come up about how people can take their journey to the next level with either their instrument or maybe potentially a music career. I have a few people who are pursuing music for their livelihood too.
Nice.
So that's really big. I have one girl who's connected with a label. I have one who's going back to school to become a music teacher, which is really exciting. Another one who's going for songwriting and production in Toronto.
Nice.
Which is cool. So people who are doing some really like high end things with it, but that's not really any better than just the kid who gets to finally play some chords on the piano or the guitar and they never thought they'd be able to, right? Like that reward is still the same. The reward for me is watching someone go from I don't know to I can.
Yeah. Right?
Just crossing the line from couldn't to could is huge. And then there's a percentage of the time where I did some film scoring for some indie movies. Yeah. And that was really good. There's a couple sisters out of Chatham. They're twin sisters and they have a movie company.
Oh, cool.
I think I can mention their name on here.
Yeah, why not?
So the Strain sisters.
Okay.
They're from Chatham. They've made lots of different videos, movies, and commercials. They've been in the industry forever. And they asked me. They worked at my studio for a year building their movie, and it was an experience. Yeah. And so much of this process, like the self-improvement, emotional well-being process, goes into that art form too. And working with others on a movie like that, like you have to totally squash your ego and then try to get to what the goal is of it. And then even watching them like release their movie, and they did a big red carpeted event in Chatham, and I'm like, wow, they have a lot of this down already, what we're talking about. And I think it's being surrounded by the right people, And
I think so, yeah. And I think you never would have had that opportunity if you were a construction worker.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Right. And and that's the power of like stepping into the field. And one of the things actually I wanted to circle back to, because I thought it was interesting, was like, when you talked about when you first started, and like, in the beginning you were getting some clients and it was kind of full, but then you kind of got to this place where you're like, oh, I don't know if I fully want to be like just a music teacher, and and then that's where the pushback was like, maybe I should just go back into construction where the quick cash is and whatever else, and so this is like something I think people experience, is like when you set out to change your life, right, to go down a different course, to follow the will of God, you're going to be tested, right? And so it's like, oh yeah, is this what you really want, right? Because now you're going to have to face all of these things that are coming up. And so I think it's interesting that, one is you were able to push through that, right? And recognize, hey, this is all like fear, and I'm not going to allow myself to run from fear. I'm going to keep moving forward with courage and trust, which is like surrender, that it's all going to work out, which I would say it has. Right. Yeah. The question I have for you though is like, where is it going next? Because like I kind of sense in some ways that you're like, you've settled back in again.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, I think I feel settled, but in a good way. Like I feel like I'm on this ship and it's going forward. Good. And it's just it's a good pace. Okay. I have things coming up in the future. I have things happening. See, like, for me, I feel like I've entered from I'm striving and like desire, I want this and the proving it, to I just check my compass each day or at every turning point. And there's a few things that are keeping my compass, like, this is how I know whether I'm doing something that's right or wrong. Because as an entrepreneur, like small business owner, every day is like, am I doing this right? You know, am I making enough money? Am I doing the right things? So for me, it's not so about how fast this thing's going or how much. It's directional, right? And for me, it's, okay, well, let's take the song I just released, Kind to Me.
Okay.
There were so many obstacles to getting that song done that people would be like, that's not worth it, right? But for me, as an artist, there's a bunch of things that make it worth it, that are tangibles, right? But at the end of the day, I check my compass on this song and I go, okay, is this worth it? Should I be doing it? And what got me to finally release it right to the 11th hour when I didn't even want to hit post after working on the song for 2 years or something, you know, and I check the compass, and is it being in service to others? Right? Is this helping somebody else? Even if it's helping one of my clients I've been telling them, you got to release your music. You got to release your music. And now they're looking at me. They know I have this song and I'm about to not release it because my self-doubt setting in. I'm looking at my compass and I go, well, I know it's going to help so-and-so if I come out there with the song. And then the message is, you know, showing kindness to yourself and self-love. It's a song that's like, has to do with like extinguishing self-hatred, right? And I'm like, okay, this is a good message, right? Is there any part of this that I'm doing it to feed my desire, feed my ego, feed my self-centeredness? And I made sure there was very minimal of that, and I put it out there, right? Amazing. So I'm just talking about this compass thing, right? And that song got more views and more attention than any other song I've ever released because I kept my eyes on the compass the whole time and kept it out of self-centeredness as much as I could. Even the way I incorporated the musicians and who I was producing and the video crew, and I had a kids choir come in and do all this stuff. It was like, I'm trying to be in the inclusion of others and give others opportunity. Right? So settling back in, I mean, I like where your head's at because you're keeping an eye on me, right? And you're making sure. I know that so many good things are going to happen. As long as I keep doing this in God's will, and how I look at that, like what's in God's will, right? It's like He doesn't want me to be this like isolated salmon swimming against the current by myself, banging my head off a rock over here. He's like, are we going with the flow of things? Are you helping, you know, the other fish in the school kind of thing, right? And it's a flow thing, like you mentioned flow earlier.
I love that analogy of just like looking at the compass, because, you know, I kind of like, I heard it once described to me as like hooks, like having hooks in you. So like, you know, if you have hooks in you or eyelets in you, like there's things that can just hook onto you, you know? And so when I was, you know, obsessed with like making money and that was all I cared about, it's like I had the money hook in me, right? And so
that was your compass.
It didn't keep me on course, like, right? You know, and so anytime someone would throw a money making idea at me, they could hook me and pull me off my compass, right? And which my ultimate compass was, you know, when I look back then was, I thought it was wealth, but it was really more so about like not appearing poor. And like that was a really important distinction to make, because those are two very different goals, right? You know, it's like you could not appear poor and be poor, which is what I was, right? And so now that but I really thought if I would have been really aligned back then, which would have been amazing if someone could have got me on that track, it should have been about wealth. And if my mindset was about wealth creation, I wouldn't have been able to get hooked by these other quick little money making schemes. You know, I bought apartment buildings, I did all these other things, and I just could get hooked, right? And so another hook that was in me was the needing to be liked, right? And so that's why I spent a lot of my money, because I wanted to appear to be the guy that was generous and like bought people drinks and did whatever. And so that was another hook. Women was another hook, you know? So it was like, so all of these things continue to pull me off of that compass track. So now when you're saying I have this one compass path and I'm just going to make sure I follow that needle, and sure, maybe it goes, you know, like this a little bit, but as long as I stay on that one true path, then everything should work out. And that's where I've landed as well. It's like, my intention is to continue to spread the work that I do, because I just know how powerful it is, because it changed my life, right? And I've watched it change other people's lives as well, right? And so I'm like, I'm just going to continue to do this, because I think it's probably the most important thing that most people can do. And I'm not going to allow anything to like waver me off of that. So if someone comes and says, "Hey, do you want to invest in Bitcoin or whatever?" Like, yeah, I can still feel the pull, but I'm like, no, I'm just going to stay on my, I'm going to stay on my path, which is to, right now, the path is to spread the message, build the YouTube channel, build up the work that I've done, what I've been able to undo for myself, because I know that will help other people as well. And so as long as I stay on that, I'm very much like you. It will come. Now, for me, I sometimes get impatient that it's not coming quick enough, right? It's like, even when I was just talking to you about the YouTube channel, it's like, yeah, it's like, it's all good, but I'm like investing a ton of money.
I could see
to do this. Yeah. I am like, because I'm in business, I want immediate results. I want to be like, hey, if I'm investing this, it should be paying me this. This is like more of like a long play, which is uncomfortable for me, right? And so, that's what I think. That would be the only thing I would for you. I would say, like, you might just want to check is like, what is that big intention? And so it's like, yeah, to help people, of course, good, but in what capacity, right? And so it's like, how are you going to help people through your music, through your work? Is it a combination of all of that? And so making sure that you are aligning with intentional action every day, because if you have that intentional action, what will happen is you'll be forced to face the shit that is still inside of you. Like, for example, with me doing what all of a sudden it came to me, I got to grow my YouTube channel. That's what it was. And so I'm like, I took that as guidance from God, like, hey, spread the message, right? That's what I took. And so then I'm like, I went down that road. Now I'm on that road, and I'm like, this is an expensive road, right? And so now it's pushing the button in me of scarcity, fear of not having enough, not trusting in God, right? Yeah. Wanting to go back to what works, and so that's why yes, having intention is going to get you to where you want to go, essentially, but also it will help you uncover what you're still holding onto, which is a limitation, right? And so that's the same thing for your clients, would be to say, well, why aren't you releasing this song? Because in releasing that song, they will be forced to face all of the shit that they're scared of, right? And so that's what I'm getting at, is like, I like this compass. I just like, I just want to make sure that you're continuing to push your comfort zone, which I think you are.
Yeah.
Letting that song go, I think is good. And
was. I was uncomfortable letting the song go.
Yeah,
I paid all this money to help have it produced. There's money in the line for the video. There's all these people that were participating. When is it coming out? When is it coming out? They were on the song. They were in the music. Yeah. And then I'm still like putting it up there, and I'm like, I just didn't want to hit that release button, right?
Yeah.
And but the intention, right? It proved to be right. It was a good intention, and people picked up on that. People are still sharing it right now. Like I'll get shares every day, and I don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, it's going like this, and that's a really that's a wonderful thing. I wanted to touch back on this.
Yes.
You're talking about the hooks.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be at my church this Sunday, and they're actually pulling me up for a little conversation.
Oh, nice.
And they're gonna show my video.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, at the movie theater.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's at Exchange Church. If
anyone
anyone wants to look it up. We're at Devonshire Mall at 10 a.m. Sundays.
Nice.
And they're going to show the video because the pastor, one of the pastors, was like, hey, like this is where revolutionary love begins, is with loving yourself first, right? Mm-hmm. And because the song's called "Kind to Me," right? And it's about that. And I was like, well, I never looked at it that way. I didn't really write it from scripture, but it's based in theology too, right?
Sure.
Where you can't love someone else fully unless you love yourself.
Yep.
And we're called to love others like we love ourselves. So how does that love look? Right? So there was a bit of that, but you were talking about the hooks. Anyway, so this is going to probably come up a little bit on Sunday, is, what's your Egypt, right? And part of the stories in the Bible is they're in Egypt and they're getting called out of it, but they keep going back to Egypt because they don't know any different. Even though Egypt's like this bad, hard place to be,
Right.
they'll get called into the promised land, but they go back anyways, right? And it's like, okay, so what is that? So he's going to say, I'm just going to ask you like what your Egypt is. And I'm like, and how that relates to the song Kind to Me. And I'm like, okay, my Egypt is drugs and alcohol, right? And I'm like, wait, no, it's so much deeper than that. Because you were talking about money being the hook, but the why was the money being the hook. And, and it was like maybe self-confidence, this other stuff. But why was drugs and alcohol part of my story? It's not the drugs and alcohol. That's not the hook. I had a Brian problem, even though I know I can't partake in any of that today myself personally. I can't have one drink, it turns to two, right? I can't have any drugs, it turns to 1,000, right? But behind that is for me, a lot of what my Egypt is the sea of Brian. It's self, right? So fear, worry, shame, guilt,
doubt,
isolation, regret, resentment. Like, it's like, those are the problems. Those are the hooks. So it's almost like goes past the physical hook. Always to something that's...
your hooks, I think that's a great point. I think your hooks are always tied to what is going on inside of you, right? So like one of the hooks I think that you have, and like this might be calling you out, but we'll just go there and we'll see. It's like, I think one of the hooks you have is fame, right? And so like as much of the work as you've done, right? Like, and so even me, like my hook is still money. It's still in there. And now I've definitely made it a lot smaller. So it's like back in the day, it was giant rings that anything could hook on. But now it's like, I've really made it.
Got to be famous.
Exactly,
Yeah.
And so I think,
why?
I think that's, right. And it's like, what is going on inside of you with respect to fame? It's like, why do you need to be famous? And even though you've worked on it so much, and it's like that calling for fame is so much quieter, right? It's similar to my calling for money is so much quieter. Like I've let go of my desire for pretty much everything, but that money one, I could still hear it whispering in the background, and so it's like, why, why is it still there? Right. And so, I've already done this work and recognize that it's for me, it's all about it's all about security, right? It's all about never wanting to feel the pain of lack ever again in my life, right? And so now the wild thing is that what you hold in mind tends to manifest. So if you're constantly thinking that I need to make sure I don't feel lack, then you will end up feeling lack, right? And so now the reverse would be true for you. It's like fame. It's like, well, why do you need fame, right? And it's like, well, I need to prove to everybody that I made it, that I did it, right? And so, well, that means that on an internal level, you don't feel like you have already, right? And so, and you're like, of course I don't feel like I have. I'm 100%. Not famous, right? And 100%. And that's like where it would go with like money. I'd be like, why don't you want money? It's because I want to be rich. Okay, well, why aren't you happy right now? Because I'm not rich, right? And so like that's the answer that everyone gives, but it's like, how will you feel? Let me ask you this. How would you feel if you were famous?
How would I feel
if you were Bon Jovi, how would you feel?
To be honest with you, from what I know today, it's probably like a pink cloud where it's going to feel great for a bit.
Sure.
It's going to feel great for a bit.
But what is the great? What is it? What is the great feeling? Like what? See if you can put your finger on it. Like if you were Bon Jovi, if you were Bruce Springsteen, how would you feel?
Well, I think that there's a really fun and momentum sort of feeling when it comes to like getting.
Yes,
right. We're getting, so there's like this momentum and you're getting these, like you're getting the airplane, you're getting the best guitars in the world, you're getting the friends.
If you got all of that stuff, how would you feel?
Right. And well, that's it. It would wear off.
No, I know. But before the
You're saying before the wearing off.
Before the wear off, when the planes come in and the awards and you're on stage, how are you feeling?
I'm thinking you're feeling maybe a little content about that you got there. Maybe you're feeling busy with it, so your time's passing by.
Yeah, I think you're feeling accomplished.
For sure.
Like, fuck, I did it. Look, I got the plane, I got the awards, I got the
accomplishment.
Accolades, right? And so So then what we do with that is we unpack it, and then we recognize that a part of your worth, and nowhere near what it was when we were working together. Like, you've undone so much of it. So I'm not trying to continue, but this is, if you want to go deeper, this is what you have to start looking at, the whispers now, right? When the work that you and I did, one of my clients put this so beautifully. It was like, he's like, when you start doing this spiritual work, it's like clearing out a warehouse. And in the beginning, you take all the big shit out of the warehouse, and it feels like you make huge leaps and your life transforms. You're a testament to that, right? It's like we cleared out the belief systems and the protections and the programs and some of the feelings that you were holding on to, and fuck, your life 180. You started following your passion. You got aligned with your message. Like, you're just in such a different place than you were when you were trying to get by creating a drywall company, which is so misaligned with what God wanted from you, essentially, right? Okay, and so big things happen, but now if you want to go and do like the dirty work, you have to start listening to that whisper. And so that's like in the warehouse, that's like the dust and the dirt in the cracks on the floor, right? And so now, while this fame thing is just a whisper now, but it's like, that's where the real work begins. And so if you need fame,
how do you clean that out?
Yeah, to feel accomplished, right? That means a lot of your worth is still tied to accomplishment. Meaning you don't feel good enough unless you're accomplishing something, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, where did that begin, right? And that's tied to like childhood, not feeling like good enough. And so the pain of not good enough is still in some ways a driver for why you're doing some of that stuff. So now if you can start to connect that, which is the connect part, to where that began in your life, right? And you can heal from that pain, right? By like revisiting it and feeling it. And then you can recognize, hey, I'm okay. Like, I feel worthy just by being Brian Jacques as I am. I feel good enough. Like, I feel grateful to be alive. It's like, I don't need to go just and do this thing to feel good enough about myself. Now, here's the thing. This is the thing that everyone misses, which I'm still missing for myself, is that once you start feeling the way you want to feel before you get the thing, then the thing comes flowing into your life, and it just comes flooding into your life.
Yeah.
Right? And so I mean, I don't know if that's it for you, but it's like, that's kind of like what I'm just great intuitively picking up on for you still, is that there's still a whisper, and that's the dirt and the cracks, and that's where you like, that could be your Egypt, is like what I'm saying, is like
it's like always getting sucked back into trying to be famous. Yeah, that's obviously, I think that struggles with anyone who's like achieved any level of musician, because they have this carrot. They're like, well, what would it be like? And I think we only get that out of comparison. We're fed, hey, this is what a musician looks like. You look at, I don't know, Keith Urban. Oh, that's what you got to strive to be like. And it's like, this is what I think about a lot, is what about the musician in the local town 400 years ago? We're just born now because by happenstance, right? This is when we're born. It's the year 2025. We have screens on our phone showing us what people look like and what their life looks like, which isn't always as good as it seems. Obviously, it's the Instagram, right? Right. But what about 400 years ago? What did a life coach look like then? Or what is it even called? Or what was a musician used for, or was it called back then? And how did a healthy lifestyle version of that looked like back then? Healthy lifestyle is, I got peace, I got a roof over my head, I'm going to die a happy man, right? I got a family. Well, I don't think back then they had airplanes anyways to be on, or stadiums to go play in front of, right? Necessarily. I don't know. Maybe a version of that back then was, you were really connected in your community or your town, and they used you to sing at the funerals or the weddings. You were used. You were needed. Right, once a week. And then people came because they wanted you to teach their kid how to play piano, right? So again, there's the connectivity spiritually this way. Right, between people.
And that's like looking through it through a different lens, like the lens that we look through now, right? And this is, and so you can see how hard of a lens this is to remold so that you can see it differently. Because the lens that we look through now, as far as a musician goes to with respect to success, is the planes and the awards and the stadiums. That's the lens we see success in. And
because we were given that.
But
lens.
you just gave a bunch of examples how there could be success in all kinds of other ways as a musician. So now, if you were able to feel like a successful musician doing what you're doing now, then I'm guessing that the fame would probably come. So. Because you're already feeling it. You're already feeling that way. You're already feeling successful.
Right.
Now, so whereas you are, and this is where I'm trying
That's the whole idea of manifesting into what you want to be.
That's it.
Yeah.
So you've got it, right? And so then, so if you don't feel that way now, the answer is not because you're not there. It's because it's something that's inside of you that's a block, right? And so, like, what is it? So let's just start undoing it all, right?
So I remember talking about this in our coaching sessions, right? Like, how do we get to feeling that way, right? So I kind of like did some of my own work in digging about that. Like, how do I feel like I'm accomplished already, right? And just as we can compare to the $1 million musicians out there riding around on airplanes, playing in stadiums, well, why can't I take inventory of maybe something someone else says about me, or comparison to, how you can compare yourself to people who are better off?
Yeah.
Compare yourself to people who are not where you're at yet.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So I had someone, he's a young boy, and I love my students. I got young to old and everyone in between, doing all different types of things, all different walks of life. Like, it's a beautiful, fruitful situation down at my studio. It's amazing. And I had some kid go, like, he was like 12, right? And he was like, "Oh yeah, but you're famous though." Right? Or he'd be like, "Oh, look how rich you are. Look at your studio."
Right.
And I'm sitting there looking at this thing like, I built it. So I had to work for it. And I'm like, I mustn't be rich, right? My look of this place was like, it's okay. It's not perfect. Yes. And then I got some other, young boy in there, and he's drooling over my studio, and he's like, "Wow, man, you're so lucky." Right? So we compare ourselves. I love this one. I heard that if you own a car, or even especially if you got 2 cars in the driveway, you're in the world's top 1% of wealth.
There's some website that you can.
I'm like, okay, so I'm rich and famous. So if someone says, my son said, "Yeah, but Dad, we're not rich." That's what he said. I said, "Oh, we're rich." He's like, "We're rich?" And I was like, "Dude, we're 100% loaded." I mean, and then I explained to him how desolate and impoverished you can be.
Yes.
And he's like, "Wow, we are rich," right? And now it's like, pray for the poor people, right? Every night when we say prayers, we're praying for the poor people, and we're reminding ourselves, wow, we're so lucky. Look how it is, right? But then even being famous, to someone else, the 15-year-old kid who's just learning how to play guitar, and he just watched my music video online, and he sees the, all these views on there. It was like countless views I got on my last video, right? I was so proud of it. It was the most I ever got. And that kid could be like, "Wow, I hope I'm like that one day."
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. And so like that's
so maybe you are famous, Dave.
Well,
I'm just saying.
But that's it. That's a recontextualization. That's a remolding of the lens, right? For sure. But then you have to listen to those whispers, right? And so like, wow, we can say all that stuff. If it doesn't really be like, if you still say secretly to yourself, "Yeah, but I'm not famous," then that's when we're like, okay, now
it's a muscle, though. I feel like I'm saying that less and less.
I agree.
I
agree with that. You can. And that's part of the undoing of the protections that have been created to protect you from the pain of not being good enough. And you've undone a lot of those. So yes, that voice in your head that once was like so loud, that was constantly saying that you suck. And
you're a loser.
You're a loser. Yeah. And that's you part of the reason why you had both of us had issues with alcohol and stuff like that was because we were trying to escape that pain of feeling like a loser, essentially, right? And so, but as you quiet that voice, yes, there is more room to bring in the good, to bring in that different comparison, that recontextualization. But what I'm talking about is like you have to get really serious with yourself, right? And I did this whoever's listening to the podcast could do this. It's like, after doing all this spiritual work, and I've told this story a lot, I was like, I heard something that's like, you got to be honest with yourself. And so just take a pen and paper out right now and like write out what it is you want out of life, right? Just be honest, no bullshit. And I wrote, "I want to be rich." Like after years of doing this stuff, right? And I'm like, fuck, it's still in me, right?
What do you want to be rich?
Yeah, that's it.
And what is rich though?
Yeah,
money.
Well, to me it was, I think that, and so, And like, it's still in me. And so there's a recognition that I'm still trying to get something out there. That means I don't have it from within, and I'll probably never go get it until I have it from within, whatever that may be. Right. And so, and the undoing continues. Like the undoing I was just talking about, like the needing everyone to like me. Like I just undid that one. That was a huge block to success. Like huge blocks. And now I undid that one. Right. And so it's like, I'm just going to continue to undo. And then eventually I will already feel like I have it all, which I'm like 99% grateful for the life I live, right?
Yeah.
But it's that 1%. It's that whisper that has to be worked on.
Wait a minute though. This is my question to you, and we never. I don't know if people talk about this.
Yeah.
But what about? There's got to be a dichotomy there to me.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, oh, fear is bad, fear is bad, fear is bad, right? Or these hooks, they're all bad, or wanting to be. Having people like you. Yep. Oh, we got to extinguish that further.
Yep.
Well, at what point do we get thankful for the 1% that we still have a little bit of that survival mechanism? Because I feel like a little bit of it is probably good for it's almost like you're cooking this big meal. Too much pepper is bad. But a little bit of pepper in there, it kind of makes the ingredient maybe just sit right where a little bit of fear.
Well, fear is
a little bit of desire.
Fear is necessary for our survival. Without fear, we wouldn't be here, right? And so it's like if we didn't have fear of the lion, we would have got eaten by the lion, right? And so fear is necessary to keep us alive, right?
Yeah.
So that might be the little bit of pepper, right? But if you want to go further, right, it's like
you would like to be completely peaceful, right?
Well, if you want to go further, there is nothing to fear because we are eternal. Right, and so the only fear that exists is the fear in this physical body and this mind, right? And so if you get eaten by the lion, so what?
Yeah,
right, because
you're
gonna live, right? And so now everyone will be like, well, and I've always gotten pushback from this, but like these are like really advanced states of consciousness. I'm nowhere near it, but I'm just like, they're really, really advanced states of consciousness. And so like even if you connect to the field of unconditional love, which is like enlightenment, essentially, level of consciousness 600, you can't even open your mouth because it's like, it's so powerful. You just cry if you think about it. Like if you're connected to it, you just cry. It's like happened to me multiple times where I'm like doing retreats and stuff. And I'm like, Andrew, my mentor and this stuff, he used to do it and he would just sit there and pause for like 5 minutes in the middle of like a 30-person retreat. It would be so awkward, and he wouldn't explain to anybody what was happening, right? Like it was just silent. And I always be like, you got to tell people or warn them before. But then when it would happen to me, I understood why he wouldn't talk, because you literally try open your mouth and tears would just pour out of your eyes. And so that little bit of pepper that you're talking about, that is what is actually required to pull you back into our reality. Because if you just stay in level of consciousness love, it's like you can't even really exist in this world. You
almost can't help out because you're too much of a higher state being. You can't maybe argue with your wife a little bit, because that's what's required in a marriage sometimes. You got to kind of bicker a little bit to make them, to make it feel like a.
Most of the enlightened teachers reached enlightenment, then had to come back down to be able to teach. Right. And so because you can't stay in those states. Right. And now the great avatars of our time, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, these are the people that were able to remain in those states and still be able to like function in the world and teach and do all that. And that's why they, kind of transform the world essentially. Right. So, but so, I mean, I guess the answer is yes. You can still have a little bit of pepper to remain like in this field, but ultimately we want to undo everything that ego is protecting us from, because it's all bullshit. It's all fake, right? It's like there is nothing to fear, like totally. Even death, right? There's no fear of death even, because we are eternal, right? And so now, people will say what they will about that, but it's like when you really truly believe that, it's like life starts to become like quite a bit better.
It does.
Yeah. Anyways, this is good. This is a good rant.
This was a good rant.
You got to come on more often. We're really flowing here, man.
We were hitting it.
Yeah. But tell us about the song and like where are people finding this thing? Because it's funny. Now here's an example. It's like I haven't even heard about the song until you messaged me, right? And now, but you've shared it on your Facebook, and I'm sure it's on your YouTube, and it's on your Instagram, and it's all but I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah,
I'm following you on all of those things, right? And so like that's like an example of like, hey, you got to keep putting this shit out there, right? And so, but anyways, tell us about where they can find it and where people can listen.
So YouTube. Or my Facebook, if you know how to find Brian Jacques on Facebook.
What's the YouTube
or
channel?
Instagram. So YouTube is BJOX. and then kind to me. So my nickname, my artist name is 𝗵𝗁𝗁.
Yeah.
And you just spell that like it sounds, BJOX, and then kind to me.
Nice.
And it's doing good on YouTube, more than I thought it was gonna get.
Yeah.
And then the Facebook, it was good. And I'm surprised it didn't make it to you too, because the algorithm should have shared it around, and that's okay.
That's what I'm saying. That's the point I was making.
It's a busy world.
Yeah, that's it. People don't still, even though you think you're pushing it out there a lot, it's like,
I know.
it could be more.
It could be more. It could be more. And I'm open to more.
Yeah, right on, man.
More's going to come my way.
This is great, man. I really love having you on. I love hearing about what you're doing, and you got, like, I love that compass, and you're just like staying on that compass, and if you stay in that direction, you can see that good things that kind of keep unfolding for you, and I really believe that they're gonna keep unfolding for you. So,
yeah, and thanks for having me back on and for everything you do, buddy.
Man. We'll do a yearly.
Let's do it. Yeah, after I release my next song.
Yeah. No, I love it. All right, man. Thanks for taking the time.
All right, thanks.